Okay, I think we can start, ladies and gentlemen. Go to the friends. Thank you all for joining us for this event today, both the in-person audience and also we have quite a few people joining us online via Zoom. This is the second event in a series of events we have this term, this half year on issues of gender in Greece. Today we're focusing on a very important topic, the female entrepreneurship, which is of course important not only as a matter of inclusion, a matter of fairness, if you want, but I think increasingly it's being recognized as a matter of efficiency. I'm an economist, so we talk about equity versus efficiency. And I want to say that it's efficiency in two ways. One has to do with, if you want, utilizing an untapped potential. That we have a segment, if you want, of the workforce that is not being, where the skills are not being utilized, the innovative and business capacities. But I think it's an efficiency issue also in qualitative terms, utilizing skills, perspectives, mindsets that are perhaps in a bit short supply in the male part of the population. So both the quantity and the quality, if you want. We're going to talk about both of these dimensions, equity, efficiency, with our speakers. And to take us through this discussion, we're very, very honored to have with us a very distinguished panel of speakers, which I will introduce in a second after I bore you with a short introduction. Because I would like to say a couple of things about the organizers, the Hellenic Observatory, or as we're known since the beginning of this academic year as the LSE Center for Research on Contemporary Greece and Cyprus. The Observatory has a very long history on working on issues of economic policy, public policy, governance, security on Greece and Cyprus. But as a center, we're expanding our areas of focus and we're opening up to wider social, societal topics, as well as our typical focus on politics, economics, and security. And the effort to look at the issue of gender, the gender dimension, is part of that. We're looking at the gender dimension in different studies on the labor market, gender issues in relation to domestic violence. We have an event on femicides in March. I do not know the exact date, but if you're interested, do check our website for that. And also, of course, aspects of discrimination, attitudes, values in society, including, of course, today's event on female entrepreneurship. Now, in today's event, we're very excited to be joining forces with the Hellenic Female Leaders Network. The leader of the female leaders, Maki is here with us today. And I hope this is, the start of a long-standing collaboration, fruitful collaboration on issues of gender in Greece and in Cyprus. The HFL, the Hellenic Female Leaders Forum, has as its mission, I quote, to elevate women into positions of leadership and influence across all sectors, business, politics, academia, and society, striving to build a resilient pipeline of future female leaders in Greece and beyond. And I'm reading its motto: when women lead, organizations thrive, economies prosper, and communities advance. And as they say, our goal is not only to break the glass ceiling, but to redesign the entire building. So very ambitious. Now, breaking the glass ceiling, of course, is not only an issue for Greece, it's a global issue. Across the EU, less than a third of active entrepreneurs are women. Fewer than 1 in 10 of the largest listed companies in the EU have a woman chair or CEO. And in some regards, Greece is in a better place. So Greece has been recording higher female entrepreneurial activity or increasing, and the country performs in some metrics above the EU average, which is good news. Still, I think everybody recognizes that there's quite a way to go. Female entrepreneurship, we're going to hear also today, faces complex problems, challenges, both cultural and economic, and this is exactly the topic or the conversation we aim to have today. So let me now turn to introducing our speakers. The floor will open with the presentation of Mrs. Sophia Kounenaki-Efraimoglou. Mrs. Efraimoglou is the first Vice President of the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry. She has been a highly active figure in the business world in Greece, and she's currently the chairperson and managing director of Arvitos Holdings and board member of Terna Energy Group and Labifarm. I think more importantly, she also serves as the president of the National Chamber Network of Greek Women Entrepreneurs, a position which, of course, relates very much to our topic. She has a number of accolades, received many awards and recognitions, including by the region of Attica for outstanding entrepreneurship, the Association of Unions, the Greek Navy, UNESCO Club, and others. Our second speaker is Professor Antigone Lyberaki, who I'm sure is quite known to all of you. Professor Lyberaki is Professor of Economics at Panteion University. She has a PhD in Economics and an MPhil in Development Studies from Sussex University. And she has worked over many years on issues of gender, both in the labor market and more widely, through research on topics such as small and medium enterprises, aging, labor market precarity, and others. She has published widely on those issues in international journals and also participated in a number of policy reports in European and international bodies. She is actively involved in NGOs connected with social international solidarity and served as member of the parliament in Greece in 2015. Our third speaker is Mrs. Stella Kasdagli, who is a co-founder of Women on Top and the head of research programs and strategic partnerships for the organization. Women on Top is one of the most active non-governmental organizations in Greece, promoting the professional and financial empowerment of women and gender equality in the workplace. Stella Kasdagli is also a writer, a translator, and trainer for adolescents and adults. She studied French literature in Athens and media theory in London, and she's worked as an editor of Cosmopolitan magazine and written in different Greek and English publications and websites. She has also translated a number of books, including one titled 30 Women Who Changed the World, if I'm not wrong, and what you can and how you can change it too, which is very nice. So we will hear by our speakers, and then we'll have time for a bit of a discussion with me, and then open up to the questions from the audience. If you're joining online, please use the Q&A function on your screen, and we'll try to address as many questions as we can. For those using Twitter, X, the hashtag is hashtag LSC Greece, and the event is being recorded. There will be a podcast available if we don't have any problems with the technology in the next couple of days. Okay, with this introductory remarks, thank you all for joining us. Thank you also in advance to our distinguished panel, and let me invite now Sophia Kounenaki-Efraimoglou to open the proceedings.
Hello to all. It's an honor and pleasure to be here for this very interesting event, and I thank you very much for the invitation. The discussion on female entrepreneurship is not new. However, I would argue that today it's more relevant than ever. We live in a rapidly changing world. We are called to manage immense challenges, from geopolitical instability and disruptions in global trade to the climate crisis, the technological revolution, and the expanding use of artificial intelligence. Navigating this landscape requires resilience, vision, and innovative ideas. It demands that we harness the full range of talent and skills we possess. We need to activate to the fullest extent and in the best possible way the most powerful drive of development and prosperity in our societies, which is none other than entrepreneurship. In recent years, women around the world have made remarkable strides in entrepreneurship. In 1999, only 3 major listed companies in the US were led by women. By 2023, women held 10% of leadership positions in Fortune 500 companies. This number, 52 women, is the highest ever recorded. Globally, 1/3 of high-growth businesses are run by women, according to the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor. According to their data, the activity rates of women in startup businesses increased from 6% to 10.4% on average over the last 25 years across the 30 participating countries. 1 in 3 high-growth businesses and nearly 2 in 5 high-export startups are led by women. In the US, women-owned businesses represent 39% of all businesses. In the European Union, women represent 34.4% of the self-employed and 30% of new entrepreneurs. In Greece, according to a study undertaken by ICAP for 2024, the penetration rate of female entrepreneurship has increased by 7.4 percentage points over the last decade. Today, 27% of Greek businesses are managed by women in senior positions. According to the French Observatory for the Feminization of Businesses, which is part of Schema Business School, the operational profitability of the 10 companies in the main index of the Paris Stock Exchange with the highest number of women was 48% higher than that compared with the companies, the 10 companies with the fewest women. Research further indicates that also Greek companies led by women achieve better profitability performance compared to the overall business sector. In 2023, companies managed by women achieved a net profit margin of 16% compared to 9.4% for all companies, and an EBITDA margin of 18% compared to a corresponding figure of 13.8% for the entire sample. These figures highlight significant progress in Greece, reaffirming the growth potential of female-led enterprises. However, we are still far from the desired outcome. According to ICAP data, companies led by women are small partnerships geographically concentrated mainly in the region of Attica and primarily belong to the retail and tourism sectors. Additionally, a significant percentage of female entrepreneurship pertains to necessity-driven entrepreneurship rather than an opportunity to exploit business prospects. We are also concerned about the low participation of women in startup entrepreneurship. Currently, it's around 15%, whereas in innovative startups, the number drops to 6%. Cultural, social, and economic factors shape the landscape for women entrepreneurs. They play a decisive role in the creation, sustainability, and growth of businesses under female leadership. Deeply rooted social norms, expectations, and stereotypes regarding traditional gender roles impose additional burden on women entrepreneurs and senior executives. As the ICAP study shows, 9 out of 10 women in senior positions consider family obligations as the most significant barrier to their professional advancement, followed by biases and stereotypes they encounter in their workplace. According to the results of a study we conducted at the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry in collaboration with Microsoft regarding workplace challenges, 1 in 2 women reported experiencing bias or discrimination due to their gender, as well as facing challenges in their advancement because of it. Furthermore, more than 78% believe that there is a lack of female representation in leadership positions, and 77% consider that the gender pay gap still exists in the Greek labor market, of course, and have encountered cases where men receive preferential treatment. These stereotypes are even more pronounced in dynamic sectors such as new technologies and finance. They are perpetuated in our daily lives in various ways. For example, it is unconsciously assumed that men have better knowledge and opinions on political and economic issues. Research in Greek media showed that women constitute only 24% of guests on informative programs, while in political and economic topics, the percentage drops to 15%. Certainly, things are improving compared to the past. The results from the survey What Greeks Believe by the think tank Dianeosis show that a series of stereotypes, such as the belief that men are more productive and dedicated to their work, or that they are more capable of making significant decisions, or that women should avoid taking on high responsibility positions, are steadily weakening. This has been aided by the increased visibility of women in leadership positions in recent years. We had for the first time a female president of the Republic, as well as women leading major companies, financial organizations, and more. However, we are still at the beginning of this change. In practice, female entrepreneurship in Greece remains a challenging path with multiple barriers. One of the most significant ones is access to funding. The difficulty women face in securing capital to start or grow their businesses continues to be a major challenge, limiting opportunities for expansion and innovation. Studies indicate that women entrepreneurs use bank loans at a much lower rate compared to men. Over 80% have reported that they rely on funds from a family member. This deficit is partly due to stereotypes and a lack of confidence in women's ability to run businesses and manage credit. However, this distrust also affects the demand side, creating a self-perpetuating phenomenon detrimental to female entrepreneurship. The funding gap is often due to the fact that women-owned businesses tend to be smaller, have a local character, low turnover, and short lifespan. They tend to focus on sectors with lower prospects for returns and growth, primarily aiming for income security rather than profit generation. However, without access to resources, women-owned businesses cannot break free from this model. It is almost inevitable that they remain small with low prospects and expectations. Additionally, a further source of barriers is the lack of networking and mentoring, as well as a lack of skills related to entrepreneurship, in seeking capital, in outward orientation, in financial management. There is also the significant issue of women's lack of self-confidence. There is often an internal perception that certain roles are simply not for them. There is a heightened fear of failure, especially in high positions and innovative ventures. To address these challenges, we must intensify our efforts in key areas: access to funding and financial support, education, training and mentoring, access to networks and markets, reforms at the policy level, as well as fostering a culture of equality in work and entrepreneurship. A key step to this direction is leveraging new funding tools such as microloans. In Greece, the sector is still in its early stages of development. However, we saw a significant development last week with the establishment of a microfinance fund by the Greek Development Bank. The fund will support female entrepreneurship by providing interest-free financing at a rate of 75%. All this will help women refine their business models, scale up, and attract investors. Empowering women to believe in themselves and their leadership is essential. They must develop resilience against barriers and biases, viewing failure as a learning opportunity rather than a setback. Stronger networks are needed to provide women with critical resources, opportunities, and support. We must also spotlight successful female entrepreneurs, especially in male-dominated fields, as role models and mentors. Finally, promoting policies that reduce inequalities and foster work-life balance is crucial. This requires flexible work arrangements and stronger support systems from the state and the businesses. The goal is to create a fair environment in which women's entrepreneurial efforts can thrive. In this endeavor, we, the Athens Chamber of Commerce and Industry and the National Chamber Network of Women Entrepreneurs, contribute systematically through innovative partnerships, collaborations, and programs. We welcome innovative female startups from all over Greece into our business incubator and provide them with all the services they need. We provide space, equipment, consulting services on business planning, marketing, finance, specialized training and mentoring, participation in network activities in Greece and abroad, and support for access to investment capital. We collaborate with organizations such as Plug and Play and Prospera Women from Silicon Valley to provide women entrepreneurs with opportunities for training, networking, and contacts with investors at an international level. We implement specially designed programs for skill development and support for both integration and advancement of women in the labor market. Last year, we organized the Empowering Women's 45 Plus, a program in collaboration with Microsoft that aimed to provide unemployed women aged 45 and older with the tools, knowledge, and support they need in today's digital and business environments. Through tailored workshops and mentorship, the program focused on building digital skills, enhancing professional development, and boosting confidence, empowering participants to take on leadership roles and succeed. A new cycle of this program will begin later this year. We have also launched a national program that includes training for young unemployed women in new technologies, finance, green energy, AI, and VR, fields where women are often underrepresented, along with job placement opportunities. We systematically promote the equal participation of women on corporate boards. We particularly focus on small and medium-sized enterprises and family businesses, providing practical guidance and encouragement to promote diversity and equality. We are also committed to supporting the increase of the female quota on the boards of listed companies to 33% and more, based on the recent EU directive. Our goal through this effort is to provide women entrepreneurs with the practical support they need, but primarily with the confidence, passion, and will to realize their ambitions. Empowering women is not only about providing equal opportunities, but also promoting development for society as a whole. A study by BCG showed that if women participated in the labor market to the same degree as men, global GDP could increase by 3% to 6%. Projecting this for Greece, it would mean that the Greek GDP could be up to 12 billion euros higher simply by supporting female entrepreneurs. As Melinda Gates wisely said, investing in women is not only the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophia. I think that was extremely useful, not only giving the range of problems that face female entrepreneurship, the stereotypes, the immense self-confidence and issues like this, but also financial constraints, but also the range of actions, activities that you pursue, and all the interesting interventions that can help resolve some of these barriers. We'll pick up on some of these issues later on in the discussion, but can I invite now Antigone Lyberaki to take us through.
Right, so thank you very much for the invitation. I'll try to be brief, although the area is rather vast, and one is tempted to, develop some thoughts here and there. So let me start with a very cynical question. Why bother about gender-specific barriers to entrepreneurship? Why is women entrepreneurship a good thing? Economists have been analyzing and measuring and modeling and running regressions in various economic methods in order to show that, in order to ascertain whether firms headed or owned by women tend to have slightly different economic characteristics than those run or owned by men. And it appears that women entrepreneur or women chief executives in organizations tend to hire more women when they do the hiring. Now, this sounds like a small thing, but it's not at all, because it's the main entrance to a world of opportunities and of changing role models and of making careers and making choices and being able to become the author of your own biography, which was not the case anyway. So this is the reason why, in the end, economists, not only feminist economists, reach the conclusion that whenever you have a lot of business owners who are women, you tend to have faster economic progress and faster social progress. To tell you the truth, it's quite difficult to have real economic progress without having social progress. I mean, I can't imagine how progressive and prosperous a society would be if half of the talent, of the hopes, of the dynamism was stuck in the kitchen. But anyway, it seems that this is apparent to other people apart from me, who is a cynical old woman. Now, when we try to think what happens, how do these female-headed firms operate? There is a very common understanding that female entrepreneurial activities are embedded in a complex and multi-layered cultural environment. Now, what does it mean? I mean, men's entrepreneurial activities aren't embedded in a they are, absolutely. The thing is that this multi-layered environment is not as friendly to women as it is to men. And this is why the entrepreneurial cultural environment plays a very important role, a negative, as an obstacle for women and as a booster for men. So this leads the academic discussion around these issues on three interconnected things of discussing gender obstacles to entrepreneurship. The first is related to gender role expectations. If people think that leaders are male and the characteristic of males by extension are necessary to be a good leader, then if you are a female leader with female characteristics, by definition, you are damned if you are a traditional female subject who does not shout all the time, but you're also doomed if you are a more male-oriented, reminiscing kind of behavior. Because what kind of a woman acts like a man? Can we trust her? So I mean, the mindset that says the right leader is a man puts women in impossible condition, regardless of whether they look like Barbie or they look like other examples. Now, the second refers to sociocultural dimensions, and this by this I mean, what do people, the society, the neighbors, the in-laws, the cousins, everybody, what do they think a proper role for a woman is and what a proper role for a man is? Now, if this is different, and it is different, then a lot of, how shall I say, a lot of inconvenience arises for women, and lots of facilitators work for men. The third interrelated issue has to do with entrepreneurial environment. And I'm not going to talk about the size of the business because smaller businesses are not always weaker businesses. There is a right number, a right size for any business, and this is not necessarily always the large business works better. But what is important is for a business to have access to information, to have access to support, have access to finance, to have access to entrepreneurial ideas, to have access to talent. Now, if the woman entrepreneur is a strange creature that is not, she's not behaving as the rule book says about how women should behave, and she's trying to sort of set up a working environment. This very often creates many problems to her connection with the rest of the world. I mean, the banks, the networks, the information systems, and this is the case in India. It is the case in the US. It is the case in Malaysia. It is the case in Greece. It is the case in Spain. It is the case in Kenya. It is the case everywhere. So let's think a little bit about what we think. How do we understand gender equality? I mean, the Greek society, in terms of how advanced is the Greek society? How close the equality is finding herself? And the question is, we're looking at the three questions that have been addressed to all Europeans. And the question is, do you think that gender equality at work has been fully achieved in your country? Do you think gender equality in terms of economic power, that is, high positions in big organizations, in big firms, do you think gender equality has been achieved? And the other is relating to politics. So look at this graph. Greece's answer to the question, to what extent do you agree that the equality has been achieved in Greece? 69%. Second, after Finland, the society believes that it has been achieved. Now, for good or for worse, there is a more objective way of looking at things, and the European Institute for Gender Equality measures various aspects of how the gender and the economies are performing. And we are second from bottom. I mean, we think we are second in the European class, and we get our marks are second from bottom. In terms of economic power, again, it is very, it is exactly the same thing. We think that we have somehow achieved it, whereas our real score is very, very low. So why is this the case? I mean, we pride ourselves that we are a very clever kind of people. I mean, this is why other people are jealous of us. So why can't we see that our performance is bottom of the class and we continue priding ourselves that we're the best? Some people say, because I've tried to discuss it with real people. They say, oh, okay, it is because we started from a very low starting point 30 years ago in the 80s, and because we have managed to improve things quite a bit. People think of their grandmothers, they say now situation is much better. I don't think this is the case. Because one way of seeing if this is the case is to try and compare it with some other countries that 20 years, 50 years ago were even the worst gender position. This is Ireland and Spain. Now, in the intervening years, both countries have developed in gender terms, you know about the rest, I don't need to underline it, much faster than Greece. They're doing much, much better than Greeks. And they are much less self-satisfied. They say that there's a lot to be done in order to achieve gender equality at work, although they're performing much better. So it's not like we started from a low starting point, or we didn't have enough time to mature and to become real stereotypes, real feminists. So my second question is whether, in fact, Greeks share very obsolete and conservative stereotypes. Look at this. The question is, do you believe that it is very good for businesses if equal numbers of women and men are in higher management positions? Exactly the question of our discussion. 13% of Greek men and 25% of Greek women think that it is good for business. I'm not referring to Spain, but look at Ireland, 40 and 50. Spain, 56, 66. I mean, we are all living in the same continent. Is it good for the economy if women and men receive equal pay for doing the same work? Perhaps. Not so much. 1930 in Greece, 52, 59. Ireland, 75, 80, Spain. I mean, you get the gist of it. I mean, there is a very of course there is a question. Do ideas change? So we have the same question. The question, all in all, family life suffers when the mother has a full-time job, not to mention a firm and being an entrepreneur, because otherwise it would be more than a full-time job. In year 2014, 73% of Greeks persons agree that all in all, a full-time job is not compatible with the family life, really, because it can be compatible, but the family suffers. Okay. There is some improvement in year 2024. It is slightly less, but you can see it is very, very high by European standards. Look at Ireland, 41. Look at Spain. Look at Italy, 54, 55. I mean, it is, and the improvement over the decade has been much better, much more impressive. So, to conclude, because I'm finished. Some progress does occur. This is true. I mean, I'm not saying that nothing is moving in the right direction, but the pace is slow and it's very uneven. The good news is that the gender gap in perceptions, women in Greece are more progressive than men in Greece. The gap between them is higher than in other countries, which means that Greek women are pushing more for change. Let's not overstate it, but it seems that there is some flicker of hope there. The bad news is, and this has been measured also in OECD, but also in Asian countries, the bad news is that it's much easier for a society to embrace the idea of equality in work between men and women, and much less easy to accept that in the family the roles should be divided equally. There appears to be a sticky movement. People say, of course, equal opportunities, yes, one should work, but we should not do things that would make the family suffer. To close this discussion, I want you to think why Spain is so different than Greece concerning gender. And I think that one of the reasons is that the way they perceive their successes and their progress is much closer to reality than the way we perceive our progress. And the reason to answer the question, throughout the presentation, you are seeing this huge wave, which is one of the many paintings of a Japanese painter whose name Hokusai, who almost 200 years ago, in 1831, made a series of paintings about Mount Fuji. Okay, and also the painful life of fishermen in Japan. The only thing that we perceive is the wave. Unless we train our eyes to see differently, we cannot change anything. Thank you very much.
Distinguished panel, and I delivered so far. So, Stella, the floor is yours now to take us through the more on-the-ground experience, also with what
I'll try my best.
Female entrepreneurship in Greece. I think I would like to pursue this thing about the cultural, the perceptions and so forth. And I wonder, we were talking about our Ottoman past earlier in the green, whether we should be comparing with Spain or with Syria, maybe. We leave it for discussion.
That's encouraging.
Great. It's always hard to talk after Sophia and Antigone. We have shared almost everything, so I will try to start and finish with maybe our own experience through Women on Top, which is both a research experience but also an on-the-ground experience. As Vassilis said before, we are a non-profit organization working for the professional and economic empowerment of women and for gender equality in the workplace. So working on female entrepreneurship is one of the things that we do. Maybe, let me just find, yeah, great. So a few years ago, just while we were under lockdown, we started exploring the issue of the gender gap in financing of entrepreneurship. And we decided to pursue this study and focus on entrepreneurship in the sense of women creating things that did not exist before. So not just leadership, leading already existing organizations and companies, but women taking their first business steps or the second or third business steps, but bringing up their own babies. And you know that women have done this for a while now, creating things that have not existed before. So why is it still so hard? And Sophia shared some of the numbers that I had included in my presentation in terms of why is it still so hard for us to trust women to create something new in the economy. So we decided to pursue this question through two branches of in our study. Our first focus was on funding organizations, so VCs, banks, impact investment organizations, and try to rate them on a number of dimensions. And you can see the dimensions here. Oh, yeah. So how many women-led enterprises have they funded so far? What has been the participation percentage of women in the enterprises they have funded, but also within their funding organizations? What the access channels for female entrepreneurs were to request and pitch for funding, the assessment criteria they used, the composition of the assessment committees, were there investors, female investors in those committees, female executives making those decisions, also the perceptions concerning the skills of women entrepreneurs, and last but not least, the attitude of the organization towards supporting gender equality in female entrepreneurship. What we saw in a nutshell was that the organizations, the funding organizations that were keeping track of what they did to support female entrepreneurship, and the organizations that viewed the support of female entrepreneurship as one of their mandates were obviously doing better than other organizations who either thought that supporting female entrepreneurship was not within their strategic mandates or were not keeping track of what they're doing. So, for example, were the banks keeping track of what they were doing? Mostly no. We asked one of the big systemic banks in Greece whether they were keeping track of where their money went in terms of supporting female entrepreneurship, and they had no serious numbers to show for it, no serious impact assessment. The organizations that did that part of the work were mostly impact investment organizations. So that was finding number one. Finding number two had to do with the assessment criteria and the channels that women entrepreneurs could use in order to access this kind of funding. And let me share a short story with you here. Last year, I was asked by a startup who had been looking for a co-founder to meet with them and maybe introduce them to some female entrepreneurs who would want to support their vision and become their third co-founder. And they were very proud of themselves because they thought that by selecting a female co-founder, they would support female entrepreneurship. The conversation did not last very long because they hadn't decided between them what age would this co-founder be. So as I was sitting in front of them with all my 43 years, they couldn't decide whether a younger woman would be most suitable for this role or an older woman would, because the younger woman would most probably have young children who she would have to care for, but the older woman, well, she would have a communication role, so maybe an older woman is not the perfect match for this kind of role. When they realized that I was still sitting in front of them, they said, well, we're not talking about you, obviously. So the conversation did not last long. So the assessment of women that could successfully lead a new business is very, very closely bound to the stereotypes that both Sophia and Antigone talked about just a minute ago. And one of the funding organizations that we talked with said, our founders cannot have children. You cannot grow a child and the business at the same time. So then we talk to the entrepreneurs and see what their experience has been. Let me say here that, again, let me share two findings. One was the mistrust of female entrepreneurs towards banks. They felt that whenever they went through the banking system, they had been mistreated, mistrusted, put down by the whole chain of command in service provision in the bank. They addressed and they asked for funding. And the second finding was the good girl issue. So many of the female entrepreneurs we talked with were reluctant to take other people's money because they were worried that they might fail and that they might lose other people's money. So what we found from the whole research, the whole study as it finished, was that something that we should have guessed before, but I think is not spoken about very much, that the reasons for the financing gap are very different according to whether we talk about low-tech entrepreneurship, so small, medium entrepreneurship that is not technology intensive, or high-tech entrepreneurship. So the reasons why a high-tech, I mean, there are not many female entrepreneurs in the startup ecosystem, in high-tech startup ecosystem, are very different than the reasons why small female entrepreneurship is small, remains small in Greece. And let me say here, let me share a second story. A few months ago, we were in Vassilis, which is a very agriculture-heavy area in Greece. And one of the women we spoke with was a 60-something woman who shared that when she married her husband and got in the family of her husband, the father of her husband used to address her like our lucky charm because of the subsidies that had started running into the family business because of a seemingly positive focus on female entrepreneurship that has led to many family businesses seemingly being run by women, with the women remaining invisible within them. And also we have another kind of invisible female entrepreneurship in Greece, the women who are not even in the constitution of the business, but are doing a whole lot of the work that the business is producing and may haven't even seen any kind of salary during their lives. So most of the women we have been talking with in remote areas of Greece share this sense of being invisible businesswomen. In high-tech entrepreneurship, the reasons that we don't see many women in the ecosystem, first is the low percentage of women who are working in high-tech environments, in academia or in other STEM fields. So very few women are in these fields to start with. So how can we expect high-tech startups to be populated by women yet? Also, the closed nature of the ecosystem, which funding relies on networking and on a male model of leadership and entrepreneurship that, as we discussed before, does not agree with what an investor sees from a woman who comes and shares, first of all, the risks and the weaknesses of her business. So what the funding organizations shared with us was that when women pitch to us, they tend to emphasize the risks and the weaknesses, and we are not used to that. We are used to more or less young male entrepreneurs coming in and say, we are going to rule the world. Our idea is the best. So we are not trained in assessing in the same way those two pitches. So the ecosystem is a problem, and also the low representation of female investors in this ecosystem is one of the reasons that we are talking about this gap. In the low-tech entrepreneurship side, I already talked about, Sophia and Antigone talked about the business traits of those female-led businesses. They tend to be small, they tend to be hard to expand because they focus on retail, for example, or tourism. We see a lack of confidence, a lack of information and business training. There are systemic issues that Antigone talked about having to do with the family side of things. And my third story here is from Arta, where we had a great town hall with women leaders and women from the area. And as soon as we finished and having talked about the caretaking roles that women tend to take in society, a woman came to me and said, well, I'm very proud of my son because I spoke to his girlfriend yesterday and she said that he's been doing most of the household work. So he's taking up his share of the caretaking work and I'm very proud of him. but I wouldn't say that in front of all those people. So I think that even with the strides we have been doing lately, it's still hard for us to see men really taking half of the share of the caretaking responsibilities. And this really hinders the participation and the perception of women in the business world. And also lack of tools, lack of alternative funding tools that would allow for a different assessment of female entrepreneurship. I just need 2 more minutes, Vassilis, and I'll be done. So as we were coming here, I saw a poster out on the street which said, "It takes a village to build a business." And I think that this could really be the gist of what I wanted to talk about today. So it takes an ecosystem change. It takes some pressure to funding organizations to start keeping track of what they are doing and how they are doing to support female entrepreneurship. It takes lots of capacity building for them, because supporting gender equality is a very technical issue at times. It's just not purely good intentions. You really need to do technical work in order to gender mainstream your practices and your policies and your organization. And also supportive policies for the caretaking balance that we talked about before. And sometimes we say, you know, in events about women leadership, we tend to say, well, women are fine. They don't need any more training. They don't need any more improvement. They are fine. It's the ecosystem that needs to change. This is true and not the whole truth. Because yes, we need to support the capacity of women to not just become entrepreneurs, but feel that they can become entrepreneurs. From our research on the financial literacy of women in Greece, we discovered that a little bit more than half of the men in Greece believe that women are not as capable as men to deal with financial decisions. The terrifying thing is that about 45% of women believe the same, that they are not as capable as men to make financial decisions. So how can I make a decision to create a business, to create something out of nothing, if I don't feel confident that I can deal with the financial side of it? So financial literacy is the one thing that we need to focus regarding the capacity of women. Risk resilience, building a new thing out of nothing, brings about a lot of uncertainty and a lot of risk. And since we don't let this prevent us from bringing children into the world, we shouldn't let it prevent us from bringing new businesses into the world. And last but not least, building STEM confidence. And I'm talking about STEM confidence and not just bringing more women into STEM, because even the high-tech startups do not only need tech people, they also need business people. But they need business people who feel comfortable working with tech people and science people. So we need to build this STEM confidence in girls and women. So thank you very, very much. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation later.
Thank you, Stella, and it's really amazing that we also get the very specific, if you want, kind of the proposals, the recommendations, and you've tested on the ground and comes from on the ground experience. Because at least speaking for myself, sometimes academics we theorize a lot, we talk, but we do not necessarily link to particular experience. I think we don't have a huge amount of time for discussion, so I won't pass it on to the audience. But as you collect your thoughts, as they say, let me remind you or announce, however, that there is a wine reception at the end of this, so you can show a bit of patience, and we may take another 5-6 minutes beyond the scheduled time. But as I said, as you collect your thoughts, please indicate if you want to ask a question. Noted. But let me just, that's my burning question. Is that, this was mentioned pretty much by all panelists. The feminine female versus the masculine female. The female entrepreneur who is an entrepreneur, successful because she behaves like a man, or she has the aggression and the more, I don't know, competitive spirit or whatever, without wanting to be stereotypical. And then also the sectoral specialization, if you want, yeah, the kind of the female, females be entrepreneurial in female jobs, like the hairdresser and the cook. And in your experience and your knowledge on the subject, is like if we think about it like that, like we don't have enough women on male-dominated sectors, or we don't have enough women who are feminine women or have the different values than the hawkish male, high adrenaline kind of person. What do you think is the problem? Is the problem that we see fewer women, 27% of businesses run by women, or is it that the culture, the mentality, the mindset that that is associated with women is lacking even in those cases, or not? So any comment on that, if we were to think about sort of, is it like the gender or the attitude related to the gender value? Any of you, just to warm up the...
Okay, so the question is, to what extent there is a lack of female entrepreneurs?
I mean, there is, yeah,
in
but
a number of, this is more problematic in a number of sectors. And to what extent, in order for a woman to be successful, she has to forget about the Barbie style life, and she has to become something different. First, there seems to be an uneven distribution of women as entrepreneurs in various sectors, but this does not mean that there is a women absorbing capacity of different sectors, that some can thrive with a lot, but some others cannot go ahead. And it is interesting that in different countries, different sectors appear to be women-dominated or men-dominated. And furthermore, I was reading a finding from a paper in India. If you compare what is supposed to be the main set of traits for a good entrepreneur in India and in the United States, it almost requires to have a mustache and a lot of other testosterone-related things. Whereas in India, strangely enough, in India that they burn women's widows' kilpa, the entrepreneur is not supposed to be this pushy, virile type of person, and people are more ready to accept a female entrepreneur. So things are not very simple. What I find horrible is that there is this women lose whatever they choose to do. If they want to keep the traditional way of behaving, they do not fit with the entrepreneurial stereotype. And so they are bypassed by the banks, by the fellow whatever, and so. But if she wants to be more firm, she creates a different kind of reaction. What kind of a woman behaves like this? I mean, do you trust a woman who, instead of going and taking care of her children, is sitting here trying to tell us what to do? I mean, and this I find illiberal. This I find a waste of talent, a waste of dynamism, and I think we have to deal with it very quickly.
I'll just say something. The weird thing is that a lot of the women that we see at Women on Top want to leave the corporate world because they don't want to support the stereotype anymore, and they want to be women in their own way. So they believe that entrepreneurship will give them this freedom to be whoever they want to be as leaders. So I think, yes, Antigone is very right. We need to deal with this very quickly. And the second thing is, when we talk about feminist leadership, people look at us very weirdly. What is culture? But at the beginning of this discussion, we talked about not just breaking the glass ceiling, but restructuring the whole thing. And feminist leadership is about that. It's not just that women need or do not need to behave more like men in order to become better leaders, but the whole notion of leadership and entrepreneurship needs to embrace feminist values in order to be effective in a new world that's more inclusive.
Can I also ask, is this, we would say that the public business is different a bit perhaps at the top in the kind of the more dynamic of businesses, the bigger businesses, is this a barrier that is less binding there?
I think that the change in gender equality will take a generation for Greece. Well, to tell you that I will say the revolutionary thing at the end. Right now, thank God in Greece we have multinational companies that try to have 50-50 women and men in senior positions. The bad thing that still exists is that when we have as CEO a man, they attribute characteristics like boss and leader. And at the same time, if you have a woman, bitch, yes, hysterical bitch.
I mean, which is why.
Yes.
Greece is a country that we don't self-comply. We saw it at the quotas, but even Europe, it took the European Commission 10 years to debate among themselves for the new quota. Yeah, for listed companies. And they resulted to the 33% only for big companies. It's a disgrace. And if I want to be revolutionary, I'm positive because I saw the audience, Dimitra Yordamli, who by good fortune came today. She's second generation, comes from a family business, not only high tech, but also defense from Alexandroupoli, the company. And she's the representative, she's young, as you can see, a representative of the family company. But there are good examples.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay. I was not very revolutionary. Okay. I think we had the question. I'll take a in person, a question here, and then.
Great. Thank you very much to all the speakers for incredibly interesting interventions, and congratulations to the Hellenic Observatory for this event. I think it was incredibly interesting and important. So my question is a bit provocative. We heard from the beginning, right, that the gap, in the gender gap in the self-employed is very wide everywhere, not just in Greece. And I think I've read that it is perhaps the widest gender gap in any type of job is the gender gap in the self-employed, generally. What is different in Greece, and also between Greece and Spain, is that in Greece we have many more SMEs, right? That's kind of the main structural economy, or one of, in regard to this topic. And I'm wondering if this is part of the challenge. And I love SMEs. I have written my PhD about SMEs, and kind of I share the speaker, Professor Lyberaki's love for SMEs as well. But I'm wondering if this is part of the challenge. And if, apart from the very important things that you were discussing in terms of kind of overcoming the barriers to female entrepreneurship, which is of course super important, when we talk about interventions to kind of reduce the gender gap in Greece, we also have to talk about interventions that target the jobs that women actually do in Greece. And so not to target kind of our support on jobs that are usually done by men, but to think kind of what are the positions that have kind of through which women actually, more often thrive in the economy. And that includes, for example, public sector jobs, right? That we frown upon. It includes all sorts of sectors that we frown upon and we don't support. So anyway, that's my provocative.
I'll take another question and then you will probably young.
Thank you so much for interesting presentations. I had my question about, it was very interesting when you mentioned the perceptions between different genders and the gap that exists. Still, the perceptions are not even like, let's say, ambitious from the side of women, but I'm wondering if there are more different across different generations, and do we have some other researches which are maybe showing that younger generations, especially female generations, are kind of a little bit more proactive, more ambitious in that terms? And I was also kind of interested about if there is a phenomenon of pulling back the ladder. So those women who manage to get at the top, how they behave. Is there a solidarity towards women, or like how they contribute to the overall atmosphere and the environment? Thank you.
We'd like to let the SME sectoral about the generational.
Okay, I've got an answer, a quick answer for both. The SME question is the small family businesses in Greece are equally family, even more family than businesses. I mean, they are predominant. So if one of the problems in the Greek society is that the family division of labor is extremely obsolete and extremely unequal, gender unequal, and extremely backward looking, then you get these firms, these small firms, who are resilient because they draw the strength from everybody to the maximum. But they also exemplify some aspects of paternalistic authority that makes multinational corporations look like Disneyland. Now, the generational thing. I've been looking at different generational responses to these values and beliefs thing, and I have to say that Greeks, young Greek men and Greek women, up to the age of 40, seem to be quite well attuned to the European trends. They do not deviate in any meaningful way. But after that, there is an exponential escalation of gaps. And these gaps do not only carry the weight of the historical, the different world that their people grew, but also the bitterness of people having believed that they were living in an equal society and realizing, especially when they get to the pension phase, that it is very unequal and it cannot get mended anymore. So, I mean, you get a very, how should I say, violent reaction to these issues.
Yeah, if I can start from the end, from our research on the uptake of parental and paternity leave in Greece, we see that even younger generations have lots of stereotypes around gender roles, maybe more than people in between 30 and 45. So I'm not an expert in this kind of generational evolution, but from what we also see from other research studies, maybe the youngest are very influenced by their parents and their grandparents while they still live with them, and they project these kinds of stereotypes. And the second thing regarding the fields that we need to support, I think we need to look in both directions. Yes, we need to support the fields where traditionally women have shown entrepreneurial success, but then we don't want the new products and the new services designed for all of us to just be designed and produced by a male-dominated group. So I think at the same time, we need to support women getting into traditionally male-oriented and male-dominated fields. We need to do both at the same time, which is hard.
So we take another couple of questions and then we pass on to Sophia. Okay, question here at the very front. And then one of the very back here on exercising.
Yes, hello. My name is Angela. Thank you very much for the panelists. Really great insights, both from all the sides. But I also would like to thank the youngest member of the audience, which is actually incredible. I would love to see young members like that participating, because what we really lack in every single nation is capacity building at the very bottom and at the top. We really need to increase entrepreneurship and education at the very early stages in education. The problem we have in Greece and in Europe, as well as in the UK, is that education is not happening at the early stages, getting these kids to be able to present in front of an audience, to take the risk and present the idea in front of these judges. That is the problem we have. So tackling this root cause of the problem, I think, will be incredible. And I want to ask this audience we have here, how do you tackle the percentages that we were saying now the board should have 33% in Greece and in Europe for board women? How will we build this capacity building of women and intergenerational capacity? I'm talking not just women, but also young population to be in these boards. The problem we have in Greece as well as in Europe is that we do not have these candidates up there. And when we have them, we actually don't consider them for the boards. So that is my question.
For the capacity, can we take another question from the back?
Hi, thank you very much. Very quickly, I have been living in London for over 10 years now. I've seen a bit about what the recent government has been trying to do, I believe, with improving childcare a little bit in Greece and giving women the option to have that beyond their families so that they can be more active in the economy. Are there any specific things in regards to that? We've mentioned boards, maybe paternity leave, that you think would really help in Greece specifically? And do you think there's a likelihood of seeing that in the next few years? Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess the role of policy in changing, I don't know, Sophia, if you would like to address the issue of educating the capacity to fill the boards, if you have the affirmative action quotas and so forth.
Two comments to the previous questions. The SMEs in Greece are around 85%. That's almost like what happens in the rest of the Europe. And most of them are family companies. What we need to teach both female-led and men-led companies is innovation and extroversion for all of them. The stereotypes start from the age of 6 years old. So we need to go and have policies at very early stages in education. And we need policies like parental leave that Stella mentioned. We need to have many, many policies. And it's a blessing that this government made many steps towards that direction for the first time. For listed companies, we need to, there are women for boards. And I get furious when I hear that we need to educate women for board members. Board members should be educated even if the men or women are the same, especially for listed companies. Women in Greece are the 52% of the population, so it's easy to find women. For boards, we can have women, older women that are not working, that are wise. And of course, we need to have younger women that are more technological, yes, savvy and more fresh. The revolutionary thing that I wanted before is to give the floor to Dimitra also for a comment, because we need to hear a young woman from a family company, a tech company. How does she feel?
We'll pass the floor in a minute. I also to take a couple of questions already.
Can I
But
say
yeah,
something
of
about
course.
the policy question? So I think that parental leave for men will be revolutionary if we do it right. Because at this moment, despite the law that exists, if a man is paid, say, €1,000 per month, and he decides to take up the parental leave that he deserves, which is 4 months, he will be paid €1,200 for the whole duration of the 4 months. So the family will lose a great amount of money that it most probably needs in order to survive. So apart from the policy, we also need the foundations of the implementation for this to take hold. And then the second thing is gender mainstreaming. And when I talk about gender mainstreaming, I am talking about the whole budget, all the policies, the governmental policies, all the ministries. So all the parts of this governmental structure need to report and think about gender equality in everything they do. And this will be also a game changer, in my opinion. And we talked about this, about the funding organizations, but it's not just the funding organizations, it's everyone.
Thank you. Let me take another question from there.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this amazing presentation and for the Hellenic Observatory for hosting this event. Well, I wanted to ask Mrs. Kounenaki, how can artificial intelligence be leveraged to empower women in entrepreneurship while ensuring it does not reinforce existing gender bias in funding, hiring, and business operations, let's say? And I'm asking you this question because I was wondering if you have considered implementing artificial intelligence in the workshops organized and the programs you present. I mean, it's the new era, and that's one question. And the other question is more, it's very, very big. It's about the principles of diversity and inclusion, and because this is also something new. And if we can, if you can tell us how we can be more effectively integrated into the mindset of the Greek organizations, because I don't think.
Okay, and one question from here at the front.
Hi, thank you. And Catherine, thank you very much for a very interesting discussion on an incredibly important topic. I'm a primary school teacher, so I fully recognise the need to educate children from a very young age about equality. I also come from Norway, so it's very interesting to kind of see this topic presented from a background of how I grew up, where gender was supposedly equal. However, I wanted to pose a question a little bit along the lines of what has been touched upon before, but speaking directly to popular culture at the moment. We're seeing in Sweden, for instance, that many people are reversing the trend of wanting gender equality, in fact, going more for the more stereotypical roles instead of progressing in a what has been deemed to be a modern society. So my question is really directly to Stella as well. In your research, have you found that popular culture is a benefit or a barrier to gender equality? And also, is there a way of thinking of equal pay being an entrance into more equality in the business world overall? Basically, if women were to be paid the same as men, would that also help to raise the profile of women generally, that we are worth the same.
Do you want to go first?
Well, AI is a tool. So it can help women who are more, let's say, timid and for distance learning, or with platforms. We need to pay attention to AI because it can create also stereotypes. I believe in AI. I use it. And we use it even when we don't know it. So this is a good thing. And that's why I believe it will help them make their work better, make them less afraid. The good thing in Greece in the last years is that women work better together. They support other women. I think that you mentioned it, someone, we are more committed to working with each other and the organizations working closely. And this is a positive thing that can also promote equality.
The only 2 minutes is
No, that have to.
So taking up the AI question, we have been looking for funding to enhance our mentoring platform, adding artificial intelligence features that can improve the connections between women who want to be in a mentoring relationship. So yes, we believe that it's a great enhancer of gender equality in many regards. Going to the question about popular culture. So we are also looking for funding for a capacity building program for educators on how to help children read critically the gender stereotypes and messages that come from the media, advertising, and popular culture. We haven't yet delved into that. But because I have worked on the issue of popular culture as a writer, because as an anorexia nervosa survivor and a writer on this issue, I have been discussing a lot about whether popular culture is a driver of eating disorders in children. So let me connect these two issues and say that because the consumption of popular culture, especially in young ages, is almost always mediated by the family, the parents, the school, I think that we are giving too much credit to the role that popular culture plays in shaping children's perceptions about the world and themselves. I believe we first need to be trained on how to help mediate the information that children get from popular culture, because then they will go out the world and let's be honest, in this time and day, popular culture is mostly consumed within our echo chambers. So the important issue is how we start creating these echo chambers from a young age, following the example of adults who are very conscious and very aware of how they themselves, but also their children, consume this kind of culture. This will lead to more responsible choices going forward and most responsible interpretation of those messages going forward.
Thank you. I'm afraid we ran out of time. We need to also be sensitive for EEDEGE purposes for our staff who very patiently stayed behind after the organized time. I should also say that we're also looking for funding to support the issues from the labor market to femicides and all that, as they say. But we have a bit of money to offer half a glass of wine So please join us at the reception and hopefully we'll keep continuing some of this conversation. Thank you very much.
Καλά,